So Unrivaled is not off to a good rating start in season 2, and I don't really see it getting better. You could talk about Monday and some of the games being Monday afternoon, and that's fair, but the Monday night games were way down from the first games last year, and there was natural curiosity a year ago, of course, for something new. I don't know what is going to be the event that changes things. This was the original numbers. Ben Pickman, Unrivaled opening day on Monday, averaged 175,000 viewers during its primetime window of games. So the games at night. Afternoon window averaged 107.
The irony is impossible to ignore. Athletes who once departed established systems in search of better paydays and greater autonomy are now watching from the sidelines as their former league explodes to levels no one previously thought possible. The marketplace they left behind didn't stagnate. It evolved, expanded, and surged forward with overwhelming force. This isn't about rivalry or bitterness. It's about strategic reality. Newer leagues position themselves as progressive alternatives, promising innovation, freedom, and financial upside. And for a brief moment, it looked like they might succeed. But what they underestimated was how fast the WNBA's underlying value could be unlocked once the right combination of star power, media demand, and investment aligned. What's unfolding now feels less like competition and more like a takeover. The WNBA didn't just reclaim relevance, it consolidated power. Sponsors returned. Media partners committed long-term money. Fans showed up in numbers that completely reshaped revenue projections. And suddenly, the alternative paths players once viewed as safer or smarter began to look uncertain. For Unrivaled and similar ventures, this moment is deeply uncomfortable. Their entire value proposition depended on occupying space the WNBA supposedly couldn't or wouldn't fill. That window now appears to be closing fast. The league they hope to outmaneuver is no longer playing defense. It's dictating the terms. This shift forces a brutal question. Was the opportunity ever real, or was it only viable while the WNBA was undercapitalized and undervalued? If the answer is the latter, then the strategy was never sustainable. It was opportunistic. Women's basketball didn't just change direction. It flipped upside down. And for those who built their future around the old version of the sport, the consequences are now arriving in real time.
Unrivaled opening day on Monday averaged 175,000 viewers during its primetime window of games. So the games at night. Afternoon window averaged 107,000 viewers. All that is down from 208,000 average viewership during the regular season games in Unrivaled year 1. So not even the openers, because the opening night averaged 313,000. So way down from the opening night. Obviously way down from the peak of the one-on-one tournament, which is probably where they'll peak again this year, and down from the average from last year. And that continued into the Friday night slate.
What no one anticipated was just how brutally fast the landscape would shift. One moment, the existing power structures in women's basketball seemed stable, predictable, and even controllable. The next, they were completely overwhelmed by a financial revolution that arrived without warning. The shockwave didn't merely disrupt the ecosystem. It exposed a fundamental weakness that had been hiding in plain sight all along. This wasn't a gradual erosion. It was demolition. The strategies that certain leagues and executives believed were smart, forward-thinking moves suddenly looked fragile and short-sighted. When the WNBA's financial engine roared to life, fueled by unprecedented investment, media attention, and cultural momentum, it created a power shift so massive that it left competitors scrambling to understand what had just happened. At the center of this collapse was a flawed assumption. That momentum could be borrowed, replicated, or sustained without owning the core product that drives audience demand. Some organizations believed they could siphon talent, generate buzz, and carve out market share while the WNBA remained stagnant. That theory crumbled the moment the league unlocked its true commercial potential. The financial surge didn't just elevate salaries or improve facilities, it changed leverage. It altered how media companies viewed women's basketball. It reshaped where fans spent their attention. And most importantly, it redefined which league actually controlled the future of the sport. Those who had positioned themselves as alternatives suddenly realized they were no longer competing on equal ground. The most damaging part wasn't the rise of the WNBA itself. It was how unprepared others were for it. Entire business models were built on the assumption that the league would continue growing slowly, cautiously, and predictably. When that assumption collapsed, so did the safety net. What we witnessed was not just bad timing. It was a strategic miscalculation of historic proportions. A seismic power shift doesn't just rearrange winners and losers. It exposes who misunderstood the game from the start. And when the dust settled, it became painfully clear that some organizations had bet against the very force that was about to dominate the market.
Friday night. And, this is not to dunk on Unrivaled or anything, but it does question a few things. And one of them is the, target audience. Who is unrivaled targeting? And, you could say WNBA fans, but there's not really much cross promotion there. Just basketball fans in general. But it seems as if the mission statement for Unrivaled, aside from developing players, is taking care of the players. And I found an old Reddit.
What unfolded over the past year in women's basketball was not a slow decline or a routine market correction. It was a sudden, unforgiving power shift that caught an entire segment of the industry completely off guard. Without warning, the financial revolution surrounding the WNBA exposed just how fragile some competing visions really were. Strategies that once seemed bold and forward-thinking were suddenly rendered obsolete as the league surged ahead with unprecedented momentum. For years, alternative leagues positioned themselves as viable rivals, banking on dissatisfaction with pay, facilities, and long-term security. Athletes left in pursuit of bigger short-term opportunities, believing the WNBA's growth would remain modest and predictable. That assumption proved fatal. Instead of stagnating, the league exploded, driven by fresh investment, mainstream visibility, and a rapidly expanding fan base. Those who jumped ship are now watching from a distance as the league they left behind reaches heights no one seriously anticipated. This moment feels less like healthy competition and more like a strategic conquest. The WNBA didn't merely improve, it consolidated control. Media partners committed serious money. Sponsors followed the attention. Fans didn't just return, they arrived in record numbers. As a result, leagues that hope to carve out parallel paths now find themselves questioning whether their window of opportunity has already closed. The harshest truth is revealed by the data. Unrivaled's second campaign delivered numbers that raised immediate alarms. Launch day peak viewership fell to roughly 75,000 viewers, while daytime matchups struggled to attract more than a few thousand. In a media economy driven by attention and consistency, those figures are deeply troubling. Viewership is not just a vanity metric, it dictates sponsorship viability, broadcast leverage, and long-term survival. And right now, the numbers suggest a league fighting to maintain relevance. What makes this decline even more damaging is context. This collapse is happening simultaneously with the WNBA's strongest period of growth in its history. While one league is signing billion-dollar media deals and filling arenas, the other is grappling with diminishing engagement. Networks and advertisers don't invest in hope or potential, they invest in proven audiences. And the audience has clearly chosen where to spend its attention. The initial novelty that once surrounded newer leagues has now evaporated. Curiosity alone never sustains a sports product, and that reality has arrived fast and hard. Fans who tuned in once did not become loyal viewers. The excitement failed to convert into habit. Without sustained engagement, every future decision becomes reactive rather than strategic, and the margin for error disappears entirely. This downturn represents more than a temporary setback. During its debut season, Unrivaled averaged roughly 28,000 viewers, with an opening night audience near 33,000. Numbers that suggested promise and curiosity. The fall from those figures to today's levels is not a fluctuation, it's a warning sign. A league cannot survive on momentum that fades faster than it grows. Meanwhile, the WNBA continues to accelerate, absorbing capital, cultural relevance, and fan loyalty. The gap between the two is widening so rapidly that it's no longer clear whether they are competing within the same ecosystem. What once felt like a bold alternative now risks becoming a cautionary tale about timing, miscalculation, and betting against an inevitable breakout. This is what happens when ambition collides with a market shift no one prepared for. The financial revolution didn't just change the game, it exposed who truly understood it and who never did.
This is a thread that says, can we stop lying to ourselves about Unrivaled? Or Unrivaled addresses a problem that shouldn't exist, but one that desperately needs solving. If you're one of the best 144 players in the world at what you do, you shouldn't need a second job. Right now, Unrivaled is paying players better than the WNBA, but its business model all but guarantees it won't last. The fundamental issue, Unrivaled has no clear product and no consumer. It markets itself on paying players more and introducing a new format, but that isn't a business strategy, it's an expense. A successful league needs to solve a problem or fulfill a demand. And, he's right, or whoever this is,
Every new league benefits from curiosity. The first season always carries intrigue, speculation, and goodwill. But novelty is a fragile asset. Once it fades, only substance remains, and that's where the real test begins. That test has arrived. The excitement that once surrounded Unrivaled has evaporated, replaced by hard questions and growing skepticism. Fans who tuned in out of curiosity didn't stay. Casual viewers didn't convert into loyal ones. The buzz never transformed into habit. This is the most dangerous phase for any sports venture. Without sustained engagement, there's no foundation to build on. And without a foundation, every future decision becomes reactive rather than strategic. People are now openly asking what could possibly reverse this trajectory. More star players? More marketing? More controversy? None of those guarantee attention in a world where the WNBA is already delivering a superior, emotionally compelling product at scale. The margin for error has vanished. What once felt like momentum now feels like survival mode. This isn't a minor stumble. It's a steep, undeniable fall from where Unrivaled once stood. During its debut season, the league averaged roughly 28,000 viewers, a respectable figure for a new entrant. Opening night alone drew approximately 33,000 viewers, signaling curiosity and optimism about what might come next. But the decline since then has been dramatic. Dropping from tens of thousands to single-digit thousands isn't a fluctuation. It's a collapse. It suggests that whatever interest existed was temporary, not foundational. And in the modern sports economy, temporary interest is not enough to survive. Meanwhile, the WNBA has surged ahead, absorbing attention, capital, and cultural relevance. The gap between the two has widened so dramatically that it's no longer clear whether Unrivaled is competing in the same market at all. This is the brutal reality of timing and strategy. Betting against the WNBA's breakout moment turned out to be a catastrophic misread. And now, the consequences are visible in the numbers, the discourse, and the uncertainty hanging over the league's future. What happens next will define whether Unrivaled adapts or fades into a cautionary tale about what happens when ambition collides with an unstoppable shift in power.
Business strategy, it's an expense. A successful league needs to solve a problem or fulfill a demand. And, he's right, or whoever this is, he, she. Sports fandom isn't just about watching games. It's an extension of identity. Fans invest because they feel a sense of connection and belonging. The connection fuels ticket sales, TV sales. The teams are kind of randomly put together, and it is sold on it being the best group of players or collection of players. The problem is there's only one star in the sport who is capable of actually bringing in an audience that would make a.
Now the data has arrived, and it's unforgiving. Unrivaled's second campaign opened with numbers that sent shockwaves through anyone paying attention. Launch day peak viewership collapsed to roughly 75,000 viewers. That figure alone would be alarming, but the daytime matchups were even worse, drawing audiences barely hovering around 7,000. These aren't minor dips. They are structural warning signs. In a media environment driven by attention economics, numbers like these signal a league struggling to maintain relevance beyond its initial curiosity factor. Viewership isn't just about entertainment. It's the currency that determines sponsorships, broadcast deals, and long-term survival. And right now, the currency simply isn't there. The uphill battle becomes even steeper when you factor in context. This decline isn't happening in isolation. It's happening while the WNBA is experiencing unprecedented growth, capturing mainstream headlines and commanding billion-dollar media contracts. The contrast is stark and damaging. Networks don't invest in hope. Advertisers don't pay for potential. They pay for eyeballs. And the brutal reality is that Unrivaled is still searching for stable audience, while the WNBA has already proven its market dominance. The data doesn't suggest temporary turbulence. It suggests a league struggling to define its purpose in a rapidly shifting ecosystem where attention has already been claimed elsewhere.